This is Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum
Well, when you're selling, you got to know who your buyer is and you got to know how to market to them. I do.
and Dan Keller, mortgage expert with New American Funding.
Hey, rates are important, but strategy matters more than ever.
For the next hour, you'll learn impactful insider information as Christian and Dan teach about the ins and outs of Seattle's real estate market. Now, here's Christian and Dan.
Hello, and welcome to Seattle Real Estate Radio here on KKOL 1300 AM. My name is Christian Nossum. I am the founder of the Awesome Nossum Group at Wilson Realty. I am a local Seattle real estate agent and a born and raised Seattleite.
Seattleite.
Boom.
That's big time.
It's a big time
Yeah.
thing. There's not very many of us around.
No, is that the same as a Washingtonian?
Probably.
Okay.
Yes. Are you a Washingtonian?
I guess. I've never lived anywhere else. I've visited other parts of the country, and I always just love coming back here. So
and
I
you
guess
just tell people, I am a Washingtonian.
I'm a Washingtonian. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a Seattleite. That's a good
I'm
name, though.
Born and raised.
Yeah,
man.
you are. Born and raised. You are. So, hey, I'm the co-host. My name is Dan Keller. I am a mortgage loan officer. I call myself a mortgage advisor. Sounds
Yes,
a little
you do.
more professional.
Smart.
We're smart. At a
More
local
smartly.
mortgage company called New American Funding. For compliance purposes, I'm going to give you my MLO number because I have to. It's 115349 and 9er. But no, we come together. Christian and I come together weekly. If this is your first time listening to the show, we come together every single Monday and from 3 to 4, and we talk about kind of, you know, I would say, I'm just going to say it, I think we're experts in both of our professions, and we bring kind of the best of both of our worlds together.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we do with the show, we've talked about the show being kind of a hub.
Yep.
And real estate and finance being the center of that hub of home ownership.
Mhm.
And there's so many different aspects of
So
it.
many spokes to
Yeah.
that wheel.
And we bring in different spokes. We add new spokes every single week.
Yep.
From financial planners to CPAs to estate lawyers to, last week we had a great guest.
Yeah.
Kevin Pierce, right?
Yep.
With
Cascade Builder Services.
Unreal.
Yeah.
And we're kind of going on this little this streak, this new construction, this new build
Yeah.
streak.
Today
So-
we're actually going to have Ethan Phelps Goodman of Seattle in Progress,
Mhm.
which if you are a longtime listener, you know that I brought up Seattle in Progress maybe 6 months ago or
Yeah.
so. It was a while
Yeah.
ago. We've been doing the show now for over a
over
year.
a year. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
And I kind of briefly mentioned it, how it was a great resource for buyers and stuff like that to potentially see what's going on new construction-wise in the Seattle area, actually only in Seattle.
Mhm.
It's a great little website. Ethan's going to come on the next
Yeah.
segment. So in about 10 minutes, he's going to come on air. He's going to tell us exactly what it is they do and how, as a buyer, you can use that to your advantage if you're looking for new construction. And if you are looking for new construction, go to seattlerealestateradio.com. Look at last week's show,
Yeah.
like we just spoke about with Kevin Pierce.
Yeah.
And he can tell you what to look for
Yeah.
when you're buying new construction and how he can kind of give you some good tips on what to look for, how to know what your responsibility is with
Yeah.
new construction, what is maintenance, what's
Yeah.
warranty info, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, we learned a lot from having him as a guest, and both you and I have pretty good experience working with new construction, working with
You know a lot,
builders.
yeah.
I built my house.
Yep.
I didn't personally build it, but we built a house. We had a house built. I guess that's the best way to
Yeah.
say it. And have gone through that process. And there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot you need to know. And our job with the show and our job on these past two shows has just been to bring that information to the forefront for you as a
Yep.
home buyer. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
So why don't we do my market minute real quick?
let's do it.
Welcome to this week's Seattle Real Estate Minute with Christian Nossum.
So there's a lot to talk about.
Mhm.
The market's kind of intense again. We already kind of went over that last week too, but the market's kind of picked back up. Kind of died off after the 4th of July, took a little breather between 4th of July and second, third week in August. Picked back up again. I've had a couple offers for clients where, as a buyer, they had 20 offers on the house numerous times at this point. And that's not just like Ballard hot neighborhoods, which one of them was that. One of them was Lake Forest Park. Just a random house in Lake Forest Park. Priced right, good floor plan, cosmetically looked great, dead end cul-de-sac street.
Yeah.
It was a good house,
Yeah.
but it wasn't 20 offers
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's Yeah, it's picked up. I don't know how long it's going to last. Usually, every Thanksgiving, Halloween, Thanksgiving, somewhere in there, the market kind of tails off and it kind of dies off until about the second week in January.
Yeah.
So, and I've been saying this for the last month, that's something to pay attention to. So as a buyer, you could actually potentially get a deal on a house that's been sitting on the market, maybe overpriced. And you might be able to negotiate with the seller because come, December, very end of the year after Christmas or something, it's going to be, the seller's going to be sitting on the market for quite a while at that point.
Yeah.
They're going to get hungry and want to make a deal because they haven't had very many people coming through the house or anything. So potential for a good deal at that time.
Okay.
But the other thing we wanted to talk about was housing starts.
Yeah.
So I know you're going to actually help me out with this. You're going to be part of my Mortgage Minute today.
Well, I think what I focus on is I focus on the economic data that's released. So I don't focus on which politician is preaching about whatever this week. I don't focus on
matter.
The media and the news. I go straight off of the reports that are generated and the real life data reports. So
So you're talking about facts?
facts.
Weird.
Yeah. And it's kind of it's our job to do that as professionals.
I agree.
We don't sell hype. That's what the media is for. And I think it's just getting more and more ridiculous, I think, every day with some of the things that we see with what's going on.
I'm going to stop you there because we could go on all
I
that
know.
for a while.
It's just the hype. We can't pay. And my message to you is don't focus on the hype. You're going to see stuff about rates and you're going to see stuff about the economy and the market and this and that. The numbers are what you want to focus on.
Yeah.
So, for example, as it relates to your real estate minute, housing starts. So every single month, national reports are produced from in regards to national housing stats.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so those reports are based off of in every county in the U.S. When a builder applies for a permit, you have to go through a certain process, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a housing start. So a permit. Those numbers are down, and they've been down for like the last 3 plus months.
And this is nationwide.
Nationwide. So now, so now let's go micro. That's kind of macro.
Yep.
Micro, not necessarily the same. So micro, we've got a strong housing market. We've got a strong, and largely due in part to our employment market. We've got great jobs.
Super strong.
And last week, you talked about there's a lot of foreign money coming into Seattle in regards to Chinese buyers, and they're moving money out of the Chinese markets.
Into Seattle.
Well, and backtrack. Why don't you recap? Moving initially, it was from China to Vancouver.
Yep. And then about a month ago, Vancouver put basically a tax on if you have foreign money coming into their city to buy. Actually, I think it was BC in general. You have to pay a 15% tax, and that's crazy. So that basically killed the market up there, and that money has now gone just a little bit south, about 3-4 hours south, to Seattle. And now all those buyers are really focused on us more than anything else.
The Seattle and the East Side markets.
Yep.
And so
most of it is going, like I said it last week, I'll just give a quick recap. Most of it is going not into Seattle, but most of it is going to the East Side. So higher end neighborhoods, $1 million plus homes, and they're just paying cash, all cash.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, so again, talking about the hype and the media, I can look at these numbers and say, okay, nationally, our economy stinks. Nationally, our housing market's slipping. Okay. Locally, that doesn't necessarily hold true.
Yeah.
So again, the importance of maybe tuning in to Seattle Real Estate Radio, talking to professionals like ourselves,
and the people that we bring in that give us another point of view, another perspective, which is again, our whole point is to get a holistic view on what's going on home ownership, on what you as a homeowner, who you might need to know, what you might need to do to keep your house in good shape, how you can save money on your home. That's the point of this show.
You know, and just wrapping up I guess I'm wrapping up your real estate.
Hey, I'm cool with that.
In wrapping that up, something to consider in regards to the housing market. There will be a shift. There's a shift taking place nationwide right now. Why don't you kind of provide a little commentary on that?
Well, and it's more of a nationwide shift where the market has slowed down most of the country.
Yeah.
We are not facing that at all. We are not seeing that at all. Our economy is just too dang strong for that. But nationwide, the rest of the country, their local economies are not nearly as good. And so I think it was a couple weeks ago, we had a stat where in Pittsburgh, your median income in order to qualify for the average home, you had to make $32,000 a year.
Jeez.
And in San Francisco, you had to make $180,000 a year in order to buy the median priced home.
Yeah, that's
so
a big gap.
It's a huge gap, and that just kind of shows. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I think that's kind of happening economically with the rich cities are getting richer and the poorer cities are getting poorer to an extent. I don't know if that's 100% true, but it seems like they're not going up nearly as much. Their economies aren't growing nearly as fast. And we are in a fantastic place. I am blessed to have been born in Seattle and raised in Seattle. And it was really by chance that my parents moved out here right before I was born.
Yeah.
And it's I got lucky. But there's a lot of people that are coming to Seattle from other places. And this is another kind of interesting stat. Seattle is one of the most unique cities in that people do actually want to come here. And then once they're here, they don't want to leave. There's no one leaving. No. Very, very few people are leaving. Yeah. Unlike a lot, like the Bay Area, for example. Yeah. A lot of people are fleeing from the Bay Area. It's just too expensive. They can't afford anything. They make good money down there, but they can make the same money up here, and they can actually afford a house.
Yeah. And a better quality of life. I
mean,
a couple of mutual clients that we're both working with right now are coming up, and both of not both of them, more than a couple have said, you know, I sold a $1.6 million shack in the San Francisco area to buy $1 million house that I actually enjoy and like.
Yeah, and I can actually raise my family in it.
And it has good schools, and that's near downtown where we work. And so, and oh, by the way,
it's
You're
beautiful.
up here. It's beautiful up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus
the weather is amazing.
Yeah. So, I think we're seeing a lot of that. So, listen, nationally, economy is not healthy. Hence the mortgage rates, hence the Fed not raising the Fed funds rate. Locally, we're doing quite well.
Yeah,
so.
Which again, we're in the best of best worlds for everything. Our economy's strong, but nationally, interest rates are down. I mean, we're getting the best of both worlds.
And you have Christian Awesome, the best real estate agent ever in your marketplace.
And Dan Keller, the best mortgage advisor ever to tell you what to do. All right, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back real quick.
Stay tuned. There's more Seattle Real Estate Radio coming up here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. We're back with more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
All right. Hey, welcome back to Seattle Real Estate Radio. This is Dan Keller with New American Funding, and I'm here with my co-host, Christian Nossum.
Yes.
Of the Awesome Group. And we've got a great guest today. We are kind of continuing our journey along the trail of new construction and building and buying new construction. So we have an awesome guest today. I'm going to let Christian introduce him because you know a lot more about this young man.
Yes, I do. I got to play around with his website. That's why I know a lot more.
You showed it to me before. I was quite impressed. You showed it to me right before the show, and I was like, holy cow.
I know.
This is amazing.
Yeah. So today on the show, we have Ethan Phelps Goodman of Seattle in Progress. And like I said before, if you're a longtime listener, probably about 6 months ago, we brought up Seattle in Progress as a great resource for buyers to potentially find new construction coming up on the market, like a townhouse that maybe is in the neighborhood of their choice, and you can snag it as a pre-sale potentially. Or if you're buying a place and you see one of the land use action forms or signs in the in the front yard, and you're going, well, what the heck is going on there? You could easily look it up quickly on Seattle in Progress. So, Ethan is a software developer, civic organizer, and real estate tech geek, kind of like Dan and I, except he's a little more geeky because he actually has a website that he runs himself.
Yeah, that he made.
We just pay people. He runs Seattle in Progress, a web app for tracking current and proposed construction in Seattle. Seattle in Progress offers free tools for Seattle residents to see what's being built in their neighborhoods and sophisticated tools for real estate professionals who need complete information on the new construction pipeline. So thank you very much for coming in today, Ethan. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. So first, why don't you just kind of describe your app, Seattle in Progress, and explain kind of the benefits of it?
Sure. So at its most basic level, it's just a map with a bunch of pins on it.
Yes.
So you can pull it up on your phone, pull it up on your desktop, and wherever you're standing at the moment, if you're at home or if you're out on the street somewhere downtown Seattle, you can see everything that's either under construction around you or going through permitting.
Yeah.
Click on a pin and you'll see, depending on how far along in the process it is, maybe a nice rendering from the architects of what that building is going to look like.
Cool. So I know when we pulled it up right before the show, we were sitting at Starbucks next door, or Tully's or whatever coffee shop it was there, and Dan pulls it up on his laptop and it automatically found where we were and showed us exactly what was going on right around us, which is super cool because that means if you're on a walk with your dog or something and you're like, what the heck is this? You can open up Seattle in Progress. It'll automatically find where you're at, tell you based on the map, here you go. This is what's going on.
Yep. And it, the idea kind of came just from me doing exactly that, from walking around and being like, there's a big pit here. What is this?
What is going on?
And, I could run into 5 construction sites going 5 blocks from Capitol Hill to downtown.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the notice of proposed land use signs. People have probably seen those, the big black and white boards that tell
usually
you
have graffiti all over
they
them.
have graffiti over them, but it doesn't matter because they told you nothing to begin
Exactly.
with.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Even if it didn't, it doesn't. It says proposed building of 142,000 square feet with 4 parking spots.
Yep. And you're left to scratch your head and have no further way to do anything with that. So,
Exactly.
So this was very directly a response to that, saying, man, in this day and age, we can do better than that.
Especially in Seattle.
Especially in Seattle. Well, and one thing a little bit unique to Seattle is we have this design review process, which doesn't exist in every city. So that's a very formal public process. Every big project has at least 2 public meetings. The architects have to present renderings to the city and to the public. And that process has existed for 20 years, but it just hasn't been very accessible. I think very few people have even known it existed really outside of the building industry. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Neighbors or neighborhood residents, I guess, they don't necessarily know what they can do, they can say to each other, hey, I'm really mad that this huge building's going in our neighborhood. And then that's about where it ends.
Yeah. And we talked about finding out what's being built, but the next obvious step is because of that design review public process, you have a chance to give input. You can go to these meetings, you can say what your concerns are about the buildings. And usually the outcome is, somewhere in the middle between what the developers originally wanted and what the neighbors hoped to change. But there, compromises are regularly arrived at.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is know that the meeting is happening and show up.
And show up and talk.
Yep.
It's not that hard.
And so with Seattle in Progress, it is much, much easier to find out about that.
Exactly. Because, again, prior to Seattle in Progress, you basically had to do all this legwork on your own. And a lot of times most people don't know where to start.
No.
Because unless you're in the industry, why would you know where to start?
Yeah.
And then again, other people in the industry, other agents, real estate agents like myself, a lot of them don't even know where to start.
Yeah. The city tools are very complex, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I guess what's the importance of your role with Seattle in Progress?
So I came at it really just from sort of a civic angle of wanting people to know what's being built. There's no reason to be surprised by development. Every building has a year or 2 of planning behind it. You shouldn't be shocked when something goes up.
Yeah.
So getting people just to see what's being built in their neighborhoods is one. You talked about people looking to buy new construction. That's certainly a use for it, getting in on pre-sales. But also people looking to buy a home just anywhere in Seattle. There could already be permits in process on the neighboring lot, and there won't necessarily be any signs out front for months and months.
Yeah.
And if you're going to purchase a home, you should know if there's new construction already permitted for a neighboring lot.
Yes, you should.
And not everybody does, unfortunately.
Most people don't, unfortunately. Yes. Yeah, and so when we were doing a demo, you were kind of showing me on the computer, and I was on the phone with you going over it, and I was sharing screens with you, and it's pretty amazing how in-depth you can get on some of this info. I was kind of doing a demo yesterday with actually the owner of Wilson Realty, the company that I work at. He developed some stuff as well, and he was like, hey, yeah, that's pretty cool. why don't you go over to this street and this street and see what's going on? I'm like, okay. So I go there on the map, and I'm like, he's like, I don't know if it's that one or what. And I just click on one. I was like, there's your name. You're the one building this.
Yep.
Oh, and here's your architect.
Yep.
Here's your landscaper. Here's your, I don't remember what the other one that was on there was, but
Contractor, if it's far enough
contractor,
along.
yeah. I mean, it listed all their info. It had basically the artist's rendering of what the building was going to look like, what the floor plans were, the blueprints, had all these different things that he was just completely blown away that all this was available.
Well, it's always been public. It's just never been particularly easy to find.
It's been extremely hard to find. So SeattleInProgress.com makes it super simple. There's a free version, which gives you most of what everyday user is going to want to know. There's additional paid versions, pro accounts, where if you're in the industry or I don't know, who are the people that generally use the pro account?
So there's kind of a wide range of people who sign up for the paid version. Probably the biggest single segment is people like vendors and suppliers and subcontractors and all the people who need to sell to the general contractors. Because for them it's a lead gen tool. It's saying, what projects are coming that I can bid on. So that's very important to them, obviously. But then there's a number of people, brokers in the commercial space, real estate investors, who are looking for kind of general area knowledge and general market knowledge. And then there's the residential agents. And again, they're looking more for just having a handle of what's going on in the neighborhood. If they're out with a client and the client says, what is that over there that's got a bulldozer in it? They want to be able to tell them off the top of their head what that is and who's doing it. And they want to know who's building. So what are the builders in this particular neighborhood? What's the time frame for new construction, that sort of thing.
Well, I know for me, as a residential agent myself, I can't know, and no one can know everything about every block in the entire city. I know a lot, but I don't know everything.
There's a lot going on.
I freely admit that I don't know everything, but I know the tools that can get me the answers, and that's where you can add to your value as an agent, and that's where I could see down the road agents potentially having their own pro account where they can definitely know more than even their buyers know because they can get that in-depth look and know a little bit more, which again, as a professional and as a real estate broker myself, you need to, you should be ahead of your buyers.
Yep, absolutely.
And you should know more than them at all times. And when you don't, you're kind of showing that you're not maybe where you should be. So, so who are generally your customers and how do they use the tool differently? So I know you kind of touched on that a little bit, but who's the general user base?
Yeah, and the vast majority of users are using the free version, which is as it should be.
Yeah.
And, that's built to kind of answer all the questions a non-professional is likely to have, which really centers on show me a picture. That's really the start and end of it for the most part is I see something's going to be built here. What's it going to look like? And so everything in the free version really starts and ends there. Is show me some renderings of what this project's going to look like. And then for the pro version, for the audiences I mentioned, kind of the vendors and suppliers, commercial side of the industry, residential side of the industry, the way they're using the tool or what they get out of the pro version that's not in the free version is a lot better tools for kind of finding the specific types of projects they're interested in.
A lot more filters.
A lot more filters, a lot more querying. So if you want to get in on mid-rise construction before the general contractor has come along, you can look for just mid-rise stuff that is just starting to go through permitting. Or if you want to get in on townhomes that are nearing completion because you want to do landscaping or roof decks or something, you can look at townhomes that got their permits within the last 6 months, that sort of thing. Or, look for hotel projects in particular. Most any criteria you can want to search by.
Interesting.
And then also in the pro version, I should say, the other kind of advantage over the free version is the amount of information you get on any particular project.
Yeah, exactly. You can go much more in depth.
Much more in depth. So the free version is not going to give you, the phone number of the architect.
Yeah.
But you may find that in the pro version if that's part of the public documents.
Exactly. Which, again, you can dig in a lot and really far. So we got about a minute before we got to take a break. Could you tell me real quick, what's kind of current construction like versus older construction in the past or new construction in the past? How do you see?
Oh, I wish there was a lot more than a minute for that question.
We can go into it next segment too, but
In terms of kind of general volume of construction, I think the interesting thing to me is the sort of time frame of your perspective is what matters. If you only have a 5-year view of the past, it looks like we're just booming beyond all belief.
Yeah.
But if you have even a 10-year view of the past, we're kind of right at where we were in 2009. So we're at a peak of a boom, but it's no bigger than the boom that came right before it. If you have a 30-year view of the past, we didn't build much of anything from like 1960 to like 1990.
Wow.
So if you put your image of Seattle came to your head in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, you're used to like not much happening. And so this just looks out of control.
That's crazy.
But if your perspective is even further back, this is a slow decade actually compared to the 1850s to the 1960s. We built way more back then.
Well, that makes sense. All right, so we're going to come back with Ethan right after the break. We got a whole lot more questions to go into, so stay tuned for more Seattle Real Estate Radio.
Stay tuned. There's more Seattle Real Estate Radio coming up here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. We're back with more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
Hello, and welcome back to Seattle Real Estate Radio here on KKOL 1300 AM. We are back with more from the one and only Ethan Phelps Goodman of Seattle in Progress, seattleininprogress.com. You also have an app, I believe.
Just a website that works well on phones.
Okay.
Not in the app
so
store
I know
yet.
because I've used it on my phone. I'm like, I said it, and then I was like, wait a second. Is there an app?
No, go to
'Cause
Safari
I know
or
I've
go to
used
Chrome.
it. Yeah, I've used it, and it works just the same. So, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, no, Ethan's a phenomenal resource. So I've got a couple questions now. I know you beat him up last segment. I'm just curious, and I'm sure our listeners are too. How did you kind of get into land use and permitting?
So my background is in software development. I'm a tech person by trade. Everything about real estate I'm learning in the last 2 years.
Okay.
But I got into it kind of coming more from the housing policy side and thinking about development as sort of, what's the overall direction our city's going.
Okay.
And that came really from growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I know people think of Seattle as being in somewhat of a crisis and having expensive housing, but for anybody who's been to the Bay Area, it is nothing here. Their prices are twice what ours are. Way, way more of a crisis down there.
We just talked about that in the very first segment where we were saying, the median price to buy a home or median income you needed to buy a home in Pittsburgh is like $32,000, and you can buy the average house. In the Bay Area, it's $180,000 to buy the average house, and it's like it's insane. And we're somewhere in between there, which is great.
And we can kind of look to San Francisco and say, okay, they didn't do it right. Something went really wrong there. What can we do to not follow their model?
Well, so is that kind of what encouraged you to kind of get more involved with organizing and being an advocate in regards to the Seattle housing issues?
Yep. So I was thinking about housing policy. That kind of led me to just the more particular question of what are the individual buildings that are being built, and that led to Seattle in Progress. But Seattle in Progress is kind of a unique business in that the business side is only part of what I do, and the other part of my time is spent on sort of housing activism and organizing around getting better policies for the city in general.
Well, speaking of policies, let's just jump right in there and get your opinion. Are you in favor of ST3, and how does light rail affect land use and housing development?
ST3 is also known as Prop 1. So on the ballot, that's what it's going to be called. Don't look for ST3 because you're going to be like, I don't see it. What is it? It's Proposition 1.
Prop 1.
Get that out there.
Yep, Prop 1, the light rail initiative. I'm for it. Absolutely for it. We had a chance back in the 60s and 70s to build out a regional mass transit system, and the voters of Puget Sound decided not to do it. And we are suffering still today for that.
Regret it every day sitting
decision.
on I-5 or 405.
Indeed. If you want to know who to blame for sitting in traffic today, look to the people who were voting a generation ago.
Mom and dad, grandma, grandpa.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't blame me.
Guys.
Don't blame me. It's not me.
Just going to work.
So I really, really hope we don't repeat the mistakes of the past.
I hope so too. And as far as property values go with ST3 and where it's going to expand, I've personally gained or made money off of buying a house, actually two places, on North Beacon Hill. I knew it was coming in.
Mhm.
I knew where they were going to build it, and I bought land or a house, a duplex, right near it before anyone else was really paying attention to it.
Mhm.
And it was a great decision. And
Absolutely.
I've been advising clients to do the same type of thing moving forward. Now more people see the benefit of light rail, and they're finally getting it, which I've been preaching for 8 years, 9 years.
Yeah.
But they're finally seeing it because they actually use the light rail now
yeah.
that it's gone to UW.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah, that thing's amazing. I'm like, yeah, no duh. I've been telling
Yeah.
you that for 10 years.
We'll go to any other city that already
know,
has a mass
exactly.
transit system and look at real estate listings, and like sentence number 2 is how many minutes walk to the nearest metro. I mean, that matters so much once you have a mass transit
So
system.
about 8 years ago, my office had a Sound Transit representative come to our office to give a presentation about the light rail so that we would all learn about it. And we were the first office that had, a real estate company that had ever asked them to present. And they had a study that basically said if you're within a quarter-mile radius of a light rail station, your property value goes up about 25% higher than outlying areas. And then it decreases the amount that it goes up, like ripple effects farther away from that.
Yeah.
And it's so true.
yeah,
it's so true.
absolutely.
And so moving into the future, I'm going to ask, I'm stealing your question.
Yeah.
Do you have predictions as far as the housing market or zoning goes and what we're expected to see? What's your take being on that side of the coin? Because we're on a different side of the coin, both of us.
Well, I know a lot of our listeners are interested. These are people that have purchased with
smart
you
people,
and,
yeah,
and
exactly.
us, and whether they're investors or other real estate professionals. So that's a big question.
Right. Well, you say predictions, and that's a dangerous game
Yeah.
because by far the biggest driver in where housing prices will go is the global economy and maybe Amazon itself.
Yeah.
And who can predict that?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
You'll make a lot of money if you can predict that well.
Yeah, if we all had a crystal ball, we'd all be rich.
But assuming there's not another big recession, and assuming Amazon continues to at least stay stable, prices can only go up. The question is how quickly they'll go up. And, I would like to see them, from the perspective I'm coming at it from, I would like to see them not increase too quickly.
Yeah.
Obviously, people looking to someday sell their homes are perfectly happy if prices double in the next 5 or 10 years. But I think that would be a bad thing for the city overall. So I hope we can keep price
Slow it down
growth
a
to
little.
a more reasonable
So
rate.
how, from the development standpoint, how do you see that happening, or how can we help that to not double?
Well, that ties in a lot to ST3, assuming that goes forward and we get real mass transit. Once that's happening, you really want to put new housing where people can walk to transit.
Exactly.
It's a $50 billion investment. The way to capitalize on that investment and make it worthwhile is to make sure we're building as much housing as we possibly can right near those stations, because those are the people that are going to get up in the morning
And use
walk to this train station and go into work and not
Exactly.
clog up I-5 or 405.
And that's where you can live on 185th and I-5 and Shoreline and buy a house for 500, 400, 500, 600,000. That's a really nice house. And you're 20 minutes away to work, or half an hour away to downtown, whatever it is. You don't have to be in Eastlake or Capitol Hill or Wallingford or whatever in order to get there, or Ballard, for instance. You don't have to be in Ballard in order to get to work in that little amount of time.
And there's a real sort of equity component to this too, in that lower income people right now have to go further out from the city in order to find housing. But then if you have to get back into the city for work, that's a huge problem right now with our traffic the way it is. But once we have light rail, if you have to go a few stops out from the city center to find more affordable housing, that's not such a big deal if we have a good transit system.
Totally doable. It's not that big a deal. And, generally it is lower income people that are the ones that have to travel further because they can't afford to live in the heart of the city. It's just not possible. You can't afford it. So I see that long term helping out quite a bit. Dan?
Yeah. So, somebody that's looking into this data all the time, what are, I guess, in Seattle, what are some of the housing issues that we're dealing with, or that you, in your opinion, think that we have compared to other cities?
So I think the policy questions that we struggle with as a city all the time is sort of where to add housing. We have a huge housing shortage. That's why prices are going up. That's why people are being displaced. So we need more housing, but where? There's no open land, obviously. So every choice to build housing somewhere is a choice to get rid of what was there before. So do you allow more townhouses to replace single-family homes?
Mm-hmm.
Do you allow more mid-rise construction to replace the kind of neighborhood commercial? Do you allow more high-rises downtown? And there are advantages and disadvantages to each, and there are constituencies pushing for or against every sort
All
of
of them.
housing.
Yeah.
Do you see changes though on the horizon for, like you mentioned, townhomes?
Yeah, so the city's put forward a number of proposals, which I think are on the whole a very good direction, and it's sort of a putting everything on the table solution. It's saying let's make incremental changes kind of across the board. So let's make our high-rise towers a little bit taller. Let's let our neighborhood commercial, the sort of Ballard and Capitol Hill commercial districts go up to 8 stories instead of 6 stories. Let's let the single-family zones put in a backyard cottage. Let's expand
Well, I
just a
think
little
that
bit the
alone,
townhouse area.
I think
Yep.
that alone would add a ton, and I know there's a lot of proponents of that. Just the cottage in the backyard, that could be huge. Now, then you got the Airbnb people that are saying no, we can't allow Airbnb or all that legislation going on too. So it can go either way. Yeah, you can add more density, but are you going to add it to people that are actually living there?
Yep,
Or
that's
is
a
it gonna
question.
be transient people that are in and out and just coming to visit.
Yeah.
So there's so much, and it's such an in-depth conversation, and I mean I think Seattle in Progress does a really good job of helping educate people on the process and what's going on. This isn't a question that we talked about, but what's another good resource that people could use to really learn and educate themselves on the housing issues in general? What are your favorites?
Well, so going forward, I hope to be doing more of that myself. So
Nice.
Seattle in Progress has kind of concentrated on individual projects up till now, but I do want to bring in more of a sort of neighborhood analysis component and a forward-looking, what would a neighborhood look like under some different policy proposals. But the city's actually putting a lot of resources into explaining their plan, and I think that's at seattle.gov/HALA, which is the name of their plan. That's HALA.
Hello.
Yep. It is the Housing Affordability and Livability Agenda.
That is ridiculous that that's their name.
That is their name. But they do have a real wealth of resources there if you want to
Okay.
learn more about
Seattle.gov /HOLA.
HALA.
HALA.
Yeah.
See, it's not holla, but that's with 2 L's anyway. So, yes, it is holla, but it's not holla.
Well, and then from what I'm hearing is stay tuned. I mean, continue to check in with SeattleInProgress.com because it sounds like you're on the grow and you're expanding what you're doing online.
Yep, and I've got a blog there. You can find a link to the blog, and
Yeah.
I try and cover some of the issues kind of as they come up, as the ones that are sort of most relevant in terms of what city council is looking at doing.
Okay.
And I try and bring a kind of data-driven perspective to that, really show you the numbers behind the debates.
Yeah, and I know that
Yeah.
you're very active on social media as well. So find Seattle in Progress on Facebook, Twitter. I don't know if you're Instagram. I don't know.
Not on
I
Instagram.
don't know if
Not
that
that
makes
cool.
sense. You're not on Snapchat.
Not
You're
on
not
Snapchat.
adding weird effects to.
Snap in this neighborhood.
All right, so Seattle in Progress offers a complete view of the new construction pipeline. See who's building what, when, and where. Go to seattleinprogress.com and click on the Upgrade to Pro link for more information. Mention Seattle Real Estate Radio for a discounted subscription price. Boom. We're
Yeah.
just trying to save you money, guys.
That's it. Great job, Ethan. It was great having you.
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
so
that
much for
was-
having me.
That was a
Great
lot.
info.
And for
Yeah.
anyone that's interested in staying on top of the local Seattle housing issues, definitely follow Seattle in Progress. Stay tuned. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. There's more Seattle Real Estate Radio coming up here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. We're back with more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
Hello, and welcome to Seattle Real Estate Radio here on KKOL 1300 AM. We are back. It's Monday. It's the end of our show.
It's Monday. It's the end of the show.
Dan's 41 because his birthday was last week.
I'm old.
You're an old man.
Yeah, I'm feeling older. Feeling older and wiser.
Wiser.
Especially when we have guests like this on
Like
our show,
Ethan.
man.
I mean, that was great. That was really good.
Yeah, a lot of
And
stuff.
I feel like we say that every time, but I
Yep.
think we actually, I'm going to pat us on the back. I think we do a really good job of getting really important guests on that are willing to share good information to help people out.
Just relevant guests.
Yeah,
This is
SeattleInProgress.com.
relevant.
If you've never checked it out,
Yeah.
check it out. Go on your phone, go on your laptop, go on your iPad, type in Seattle in Progress. That's SeattleInProgress.com. If you're on your phone, you will be able to, it'll automatically find where you're at. Same with on your computer. It knows right where you're sitting at home, like which room and chair you're sitting. No, I'm not. That's a little creepy.
Literally like Santa Claus.
Like Santa Claus.
knows where you're at.
No, but it knows where you are location-wise on a map, and it will pull up everything that's going on around you. So like we were saying in the example, you're walking your dog down the street, and you're like, what is going on here? This house was here yesterday, and today there's a bulldozer, and it's half gone. Like, what happened? What's happening? What's going on?
Yeah.
And that's why Ethan created the site, but that's also what you can do to stay on top of what's happening. And then if you're not happy with what the design is for that, you can actually attend the meeting, give your input, make some change happen. It's really not that hard, but you can do that. And he gives you the tools at Seattle in Progress to make that happen. So it's pretty important. It's a great website, great resource. He really is a good housing advocate. I've had some good conversations with him in the past. Dan's trying to eat his microphone.
No, I just headbutted it. Sorry. Sorry for the noise.
He's just a smart guy.
Well, and I think homebuyers that are moving to a certain community, this isn't a bad site to even look at to see, hey, what's going on in the next 1 to 2 years? Because like he said, these are most of the times with permitting and planning, it's a 1 to 2 year process, right?
So I've actually had clients who initially weren't working. They were working with Redfin. They weren't happy with the service after losing out on 5 offers.
Ouch.
Yeah. And their agent had no clue, or there are multiple people that unlock doors for them. I don't even call them agents, but technically they are. They had no clue what that was or gave them any sort of impact or information on it. And they found this website, Seattle in Progress, on their own. They realized that the house that they were about to make an offer on and pay way over asking price in order to get it, next door there was a much taller building because it was zoned for something else that was going to completely block the view that that's what they were paying for. That's what they were willing to pay for. And they ended up smartly not making an offer on that house because in a year that wouldn't be the same house.
No.
It would have, the wall of windows that they were loving was going to be staring at the other side of a building.
That's huge.
So as a home buyer, use this to your advantage. Your agent should know about it if you're using an agent that's smart. They should. If they don't, maybe it's time to consider using a different agent because you should know.
Yeah.
And you can use this to help you understand, what is going on in my neighborhood? Yeah. Is there going to be a project right next door that's already got approved plans and permits and in 3 months it's going to start construction or whatever the situation is? You can stay up to date. You can stay informed.
Yep.
And that's, I know for me, my whole entire kind of my spiel, I want to make sure that you as a buyer or seller are educated about the process, educated about pricing in your neighborhood, and educated about the neighborhood in general. And this fits right along with that. SeattleInProgress.com helps with all of that, helps keep you informed. Because when you're educated, you don't make mistakes, you don't make regrets, or you don't make decisions that you regret later.
Well, how much would your clients have regretted that home purchase decision, and how much money would they have lost by overpaying for a house that had, and essentially the house was worth what it was worth, partly because of the view, right? So it's big information. So another good guest, good stuff, Christian. Yeah. So here's the thing, I wanted to kind of share this and recap this, and I hope our listeners have stuck around to hear this. But just recently in the past month, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something in the air or the water, but the level of ridiculous questions that I'm getting from clients, like ridiculous. It's almost frustrating. Like I'll get out of a mortgage planning meeting.
So is this because you're giving them the answers up front and the resources to get the answers up front, and they're not listening to it.
I think
they're
it's
not
the
learning?
internet. So I think first off, and it's a double-edged. So I mean, the internet's a good thing and the internet's a bad thing. I think
True.
with like what we were talking about in segment 1, the media and the hype.
It's a hype machine. Yeah.
It's a hype machine. So, a lot of the questions I'm getting a ton of bubble related questions. And I'm like, let me ask you this. Do you know anything about the housing market from the early 2000s, 01 to maybe 05 that maybe contributed to the bubble? Well, and I watched this movie and I read this thing and I'm like, okay, listen. The difference, and I'm having to explain the big differences. I mean, and I'm getting other questions surround just crazy questions. And then once we get into the process of buying a home and financing, the random calls and emails that I'm getting from clients about concerns, stages of the game that they're in, I'm just finding it's almost like I'm having conversations with my team. Like, is it a full moon? Is it there's something in the water, in the air? Like, we have never received this amount of questions or the amount of questions in this depth. So I guess, and we're doing what you and I do with the homebuyer classes.
Yeah.
It's big because it helps address a lot of those things.
Well, we lay the groundwork, and
yeah.
we lay that educational groundwork, really,
Yeah.
so that people understand what to expect, what's going on. Here's how the process works. Here are the steps.
Yeah.
So maybe they're missing part of that up front and
Yeah.
paying attention to what the media is
Yeah.
saying, because that is happening more and more.
I'm telling a lot of my clients and my team this right now. The media is putting a lot of hype on rates. Rates are low right now. And so whenever that happens, what does the media do? What do banks do? What do the big banks and credit unions
Advertise.
It's, hey, advertise, low. And I think what I try to do and what I'm trying to do, I'm putting more focus on, this is now a part of my mortgage planning presentation, is I think the media, the markets, everything is trying to commoditize the mortgage and real estate industries. And I'm here to say that, no, let's slow things down and let's start bringing more value back to, this is the largest financial decision of your life. It doesn't deserve to be commoditized. And so,
Well, and you can't make it cookie cutter either.
no,
Unfortunately,
you can't. Every single
It's
transaction
not
is different.
An airline
Yeah.
flight that I just
No.
bought,
No.
because it's one seat on a plane.
Yeah.
The plane, everyone has the same experience unless you're in a different first class or whatever.
Yep.
It's not that.
Yeah.
Every person has a lot of different factors going into whether or not they can actually qualify for that mortgage.
Yeah.
Their job,
Yep.
their income, their length of employment, their credit history, what boo-boos they had on their
Yeah.
credit history,
The property,
the property itself.
the value.
There's
the
so many
offer.
things that
Yeah.
go into it, and the condition of the property.
Yep.
I mean, all these things
Yeah.
factor in, and that's why you can't commoditize it. That's
No.
why you can't get
Well,
into that.
And bringing this a 100, and I guess, what is that, 360 degrees full circle here. Just like the guest that we had on today. Without a resource like that, a client that you gave an example to could have made a very, very costly financial decision. And so I guess I'm here to say, slow down. Don't slow down. Make sure you're working with a professional, but understand what you're doing and understand where you're getting your information. You can find anything online. Just because you say it online doesn't mean it's true. Obviously,
It's so true.
You spend a lot of time talking about
Be wise. Be smart.
Yeah.
Be wise. That's really what it
Yep.
boils down to.
Yep.
Educate yourself with real facts. Try and validate the facts. Try and validate the source.
Yeah.
And make sure that they're local. Real estate is local.
It's local.
You can read stats nationally, like we talked about at the very beginning of the show. Nationwide housing starts are low. That means new construction is lower than it's been.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, good to know.
Yep.
But locally, that's not the case.
Yeah.
So you got to go macro and micro. You got to go big picture and super zoomed in. And that's where having a real pro on your side to help you makes that decision a lot easier.
And kind of taking that just one step deeper, just because it's on a website that's talking about local stats or property, that needs to be taken a step further and talk with a real human being and a pro that can verify that. Just because Zillow says one thing doesn't mean it's the truth.
Zillow's not local.
No.
Their
no.
headquarters is here, but
No.
they're not local.
No. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that. I think our viewers and listeners need to understand that.
Well, it's a dose of reality.
Yeah.
It really is. And I appreciate the fact that you brought that up. Obviously, that was not planned or
Bugging me.
anything, but
No.
but it's helpful, and I think people can get something from it. So, thank you everyone for watching yet another show, listening to the show. We appreciate you.
To
Stay
contact the
tuned
show
for next week.
Or for more information, visit SeattleRealEstateRadio.com. That's SeattleRealEstateRadio.com. And be sure to tune in again next Monday at 3 for more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller, right here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL.